Over the last 10 years or so, vision training has really taken off as a thing. People are training their vision for a variety of reasons, whether it is to improve their performance or reduce their injuries in sports, as well as even training themselves so that they no longer need to be wearing glasses. In this video, I want to go over 5 reasons why vision training might be a good idea and why I think you should be incorporating it into your everyday life. So, reason number 1, vision is old. So much so that the eye has been reproduced in evolution many times throughout history, despite it being one of the most complex parts of the human body. If we think about the fact that our eyes are really just interpreting and responding to light stimulus, vision goes back way further than even the evolution of the eye. Light, and particularly the wavelengths of light that are visible to most animals, was really important in the process of photosynthesis. So for a lot of organisms, the whole reason they learned to move around in the first place was in response to knowing which areas were light and which areas were dark. They wanted to move themselves into the areas that had more light because this is where they could get more energy. Now, being old by itself isn't enough to merit vision training on its own, but what is important is to know what happens when something is evolutionarily that old. How does it affect the rest of what comes afterwards? Because vision was developed so long ago, it begins in a very primitive part of the brain. That means other areas of the brain evolved and developed after vision was already around. So vision actually has strong links and connections with everything that came after it. In fact, 50% of all of the neurons in the brain are in some way related with vision. This means that when our vision is affected, for better or for worse, it's not just the creating the picture that is affected. There can be knock-on effects in many other parts of the brain. This brings me on to my second point, which is that vision training is brain training. In this modern day, we now know that the majority of things that happen in our brain can be trained or at least influenced for better or for worse. And it's now looking increasingly likely that vision is no different. If we're saying that half of our brain is controlled by vision, that leaves quite a lot of scope for things to deteriorate over time. The more we can train our vision and the more we can use our eyes in as many ways as possible, the more likely that we're going to keep as many different brain regions healthy as possible. This brings us to point number 3, that our eyes can directly affect our energy levels. Former Navy SEAL David Goggins is famous for saying, when your mind thinks that you're done, you're only at 40% of your body's capability. Now, whether or not he's exactly right on the numbers, what is true is that your brain is built for survival, and therefore it never will let you use up all of the energy that you actually have stored. The eyes can play a huge role in this. So, again, your vision is responsible for 50% of the neurons in your brain. Your brain alone uses up 1/5 of the body's total energy. That means that your eyes play a huge role in how tired you feel overall. If your eyes feel like they are being overworked, then your brain is going to make you feel tired so that it can save energy in all the extra processing it's going to have to do. The more situations we train our eyes to be able to deal with, the less likely they are to get into a stressed state and fatigue the body overall. Point number 4 is that our eyes are central to decision making in the body. And in fact, out of all of our senses, our eyes play a dominant role in interpretation of our external environment. Because our brains are built for survival, one of the things our brains always want to know is what I'm currently doing safe? And if not, how can I avoid it? To make this decision, it gathers information from all the senses it has available to it. information from just one sense alone may not always be completely reliable. So sometimes our brain has to take all the information it can get to build the most accurate picture of what's going on. But when it comes to actually making this decision, not all the senses are equal on the hierarchy. Vision is ranked well above all of the others almost all of the time. To illustrate this point, I'd like you to think of what happens when you experience motion sickness. So motion sickness you normally feel when you're inside of a car. What happens is your eyes will be staring at the inside of the car. They see that nothing is moving, and so they send the information to your brain that you are not moving, you're stationary. Your vestibular system, on the other hand, that is the fluid inside your ears that tell you whether or not you're moving, relay the information to your brain that yes, you are moving forward, and actually you're going quite fast. So here we've got two pieces of information. From the eyes, we have the information that we're not moving, we're stationary. From the inner ear, we have the information saying we are moving. Our brain now has to take both of these pieces of information, and because they conflict, it has to decide which one it's going to believe. Signs to look out for when your brain does not believe what your eyes are telling you are usually along the lines of hallucinations. Signs that your brain is not believing your vestibular system include dizziness and nausea, which is exactly what motion sickness is characterized as. This is just to show that our brains will prioritize our visual information more than it will prioritize anything else. What we then need to do with that information is know that if we can make that visual information clearer by training our vision and making sure that our eyes are able to gather as much information as possible, that will then improve all of the decisions our brain is making based on this information. And finally, point number 5, the final reason I think that everybody should be training their vision is vision will actively affect your posture. But there are two main ways that vision can affect our posture. The first is that lack of visual clarity will cause us to adopt specific postures and positions. Just think about it this way. If you are struggling to see your computer screen or your phone in front of you, and your eyes are not strong enough to refocus your lens to make the image clearer, what are the options that you have? You have to get your face and your head closer to that image somehow. How are we going to do this? Usually it's by sticking your head forwards or rounding your spine. Exactly the kind of posture people associate with sitting at a desk for too long. Now, we might temporarily rectify this by using lenses or glasses, but all that does over the long term is to allow our lens to relax more and more and more, leaving it weaker and weaker over time. And over time, we might find that our movement suffers as well. So as well as the bad resting posture, well, when my head sticks out this far, actually, it can be quite awkward to turn my head left or right. I might need to start using the rest of my trunk. In fact, if you've ever seen anyone with varifocal lenses, that are lenses that change in strength from high to low, quite often when you see them turn around, they need to keep their eyes centered in their head, so they do these whole body movements. The second thing that happens when our vision deteriorates is our brains now have lost its primary decision maker and it gets stressed. What happens to the posture of stressed individuals? It becomes protective. So if we know in our brains that we're not going to be able to interpret the information in the world around us as well as we used to, we start to see muscles becoming more tense and tight. We start to see our posture start to try and cover our midline or our faces, so that if any danger does come out of the blue unexpectedly, we are already closer to protecting it. These are all things small enough not to notice in your everyday life, but the gradual accumulation over time is probably one of the main causes of just feeling old. It's not necessarily just our body that's involved in this. It can be, to a very large extent, the ability of our eyes to interpret and process visual information. So there you have it, everyone. There are 5 reasons that I think everybody should incorporate vision training to improve their daily lives and their lives long term. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Let us know in the comments. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.